In this video, I'm gonna try the 5 weirdest drum trends of 2023. I'll tell you about where they came from and who I've seen doing them. Then I'll take it to the kit and try it myself. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll reveal the thing that's at the end of the video. What, were you expecting me to tease the end? Like, you won't believe the By the way, I'm Nate, and on this channel we do one thing and one thing alone.
What is your profession?
Now that we've cleared that up, a little introduction. In my day-to-day life, I'm not much of a gear guy. Just hop on the shared 4-piece in my practice room, slap my gorgeous Meinl cymbals up, and do my thing. But like you, if you're watching this, I've seen an internet drum video or two. And some drummers get really innovative with setups. Occasionally it sticks and just becomes the normal thing we all do. Like raising up the low boy to become the hi-hat and playing beats on it with a lead hand. Or modern stuff like stacks. I think stacks have kind of become mainstream. But today we're going to examine some trends that are newer than that. Like this tom tuning. Notice how everybody started doing that all of a sudden? Or this thing, which I first noticed in the 2000s, but which now is becoming mainstream enough that there's a word for it. Snoms. And a couple of others. Will these become mainstream, or are they just fads? Either way, we'll try out 5 of them and report back to you good people. Today on 80/20, part 2 of the Is It a Fad series, trying the 5 weirdest drum trends of this year. Stay tuned. Guys, very quick message to let you know that with a couple of these setups, I'll be improvising some impromptu drum loops, like a little beat pack. And you're probably hearing some of them right now if my editor is up to playing them. Thank you, sir. Anyway, you might want to wait to learn some of these little beats, these beatlets. And for that, I've got my mini book, 15 mildly soiled grooves. Just kidding. But I do have a transcription of all these available for free below the player if you just click the link and tell me where to send it. Okay, let's get on with the show. Speaking of Zach, let's talk about weird setup numero singular. Have you noticed anything weird about Zach's cymbal sound? Like, check this clip of Everything Yes. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Where are the crash cymbals? Maybe that's just a fluke. Let's check another video from Zach's channel. Same thing! Instead, he's doing something I haven't seen much before. So I'm gonna name it. Because it's a stack, but kind of a hidden stack, I'm gonna call it Hidden Stacks. In all seriousness, let's try to see what he's playing. The nice thing is, Zach is a fellow Meinl artist. So I should be able to get close to the sounds with my own little Meinl assortment here in 80/20 HQ. If you look at the Groovin' in Memphis video, the bottom cymbal looks like a dual trash crash, which, luckily, I possess. Let's see what the top cymbal is. Come on, walk around the kit, my guy. Ha! Overhead cam. Okay, let's zoom in. Boom! 22-inch extra thin hammered crash. So he's taking a big thin crash and putting it on top of a trash crash to make this sound. Now, I do not possess this exact cymbal, but I want to try the same thing with a couple of my Byzances. First, let's try it with my 18-inch extra thin jazz crash. Now, if we want to go bigger, let's use my 20-inch dry cymbal. Ooh, this is a combo I like. The thing you notice with this sound is everything decays really quickly, which is really good for this style of music because it stays out of the way of the other instruments. Okay, let's give the verdict. This is a combo I'll play with more. It's less trashy than a traditional stack with the slotted cymbal on top. The size of the top cymbal gives it more sustain too. I could see using this as a setup, although maybe alongside more traditional crashes. In terms of is this a fad, I'd say less a fad than just another option you can use. Stacks have been pretty mainstream since about 2005, and this is just a more individual way to assemble them, from a guy who I know experiments a lot with his cymbals. But what do you think? Leave a comment below. Ready to go on to number 2? Let's go on to number 2. Weird drum trend number 2. Toy toms. Not sure if you've noticed, but there's a trend recently with toms tuned pretty high and pretty dead. I first noticed it in this JD Beck video. But if you go back, drummers like Cleon Edwards were doing this a few years before. He's got his toms tuned lower, but it's the same intentionally dead sound. Here's another Cleon video. Here the toms are tuned higher, but still with a lot of the resonance limited. Oh snap! See what he's doing with his cymbals here? Hidden stacks, you guys. I told you. You can see the dead tom thing even more clearly in this Cleon clip. And speaking of innovative setups, but let's stay on task. From this video, it looks like he's actually got a piece of paper taped to his tom. So we're gonna start this experiment low budget. I'm going to get some printer paper and some duct tape. We'll do this with 2 different tunings. Let's start low. It's definitely a vibe. I've retained the Zach hidden stack. Now let's tune everything up and put the paper back on. It's definitely a niche sound. I'll try to improvise a JD Beck-esque lick you can copy. And now I'll isolate it and slow it down. What do we think, guys? And remember, free transcription below the player. Not this player, the player you're watching on. I feel like the sound of the paper getting smacked is a bit distracting, and the paper deteriorates throughout the set. I bet somebody's already making a commercial version of this though. Ping me in the comments if there is. At any rate, you could probably achieve a similar sound with a really high tuning and just a really thick drum mute. Let's render our verdict. I'm going to go fad, and that I don't anticipate this becoming super mainstream. Maybe the tuning trend, but not the paper. But I could be wrong. What do you guys think? While we're on the subject of toms, let's move on to number 3. Weird drum trend number 3. Placing the high rack tom in the low rack tom position on your 4-piece. I'm pretty sure I've seen both Mike Mitchell and Jairus do this one. Let's search the archives. Bam! Very first result. Jairus is another fellow Meinl artist. And the great thing about their YouTube channel is for any drummer you want to find, there are multiple high quality videos from multiple angles, so you get a really good overview of somebody's playing. So in this video, Jairus has the Ludwigs. He's put the 2 rack toms off to the right and no tom in the usual position just above the snare. Here's a clip. And in this, we can see he's got the tom in the low rack tom position instead of the high rack tom position, and he's doing something else we'll talk about later on in this video. Let's try to find some Mike Mitchell footage. Here Mike isn't doing it explicitly, but he does put an extra rack tom on top of the low rack tom to create kind of a line down the right side of the kit. And Mike experiments with this type of setup a lot. Here he's doing it on the other side of the kit. Be that as it may, our jumping off point will simply be reversing the rack toms. And as I've seen Jairus do a number of times, I'm going to put a smack stack in the position of the high tom, and we'll see what we get. What I notice immediately is a lot of my sweep idioms have to be different. Like if I want to do some classic Bonham or Steve Gadd Boogada, the tom isn't where I'd reach for it with the left hand. Additionally, there's a challenge keeping the high rack tom out of the way of the ride cymbal when it's in the number 2 position. Most of the stuff I'd end up playing would be similar to if I had 2 floor toms. Instead of being accessible from both hands, it really favors the right hand. Let's check another Jairus video to see what he's able to wring out of this setup. This one's from a Vic Firth video. It's hard to find too many instances where he's using the toms. Before we get back, let me improv a bit with this setup so I can get you a transcribable groove or hot lick. There. Now let's isolate. I think in the instances when Jairus plays this setup, it's because he's focused on the left side of the kit and not really trying to do runs down the toms. If we go back to the Spider-Man video from Meinl, watch how he's mostly playing the toms with the right hand, almost as an alternative to a ride cymbal bell or something. In more recent clips, it looks like he's back to the double rack tom. Anyway, the verdict. I don't think this is a fad. Just like the hidden stacks Cleon and Zach were using, I think this is more of just an individual innovation. And by that rationale, we should include Mike Mitchell's stuff too, in the broad category of just redefining the kit. And heck, Cleon too. In situations like this, where he's got a floor tom in the usual snare position, then he's got the snare off to the left like a cocktail kit setup. As a guy who doesn't mess with my own setup very much, I appreciate this stuff. And our final tom trend is something I noticed from Eric Harland and Chris Dave in the mid-2000s. Anyway, weird drum trend number 4. Snoms. At the time I first started seeing it, it didn't really have a name. It was just using deep snare drums as toms. I even tried it back in the day because I was such a huge Eric fan. Now, of course, it does have a name because drum companies have caught into the fact that they can manufacture it. The Snom, which isn't the greatest. Don't get me started. But let's check out some videos. Here's the classic. Eric Harland playing with the Jazz Collective. I've gotten a lot of mileage of this clip over the years. But wait for it. You can see he's playing snares as toms. Let's look at another classic, Chris Dave and the Drumheads. Here, Chris is playing 100% snare drums, and the idea of the Snom was born. A detuned snare drum you can use as a tom, or throw the snares on and use it as a detuned snare. Here's Jairus again with that big Snom on his right side, and in this video, he's using it as a detuned snare. Should we experiment with this puppy? For this demo, I'll go full Jairus and leave the smack stack in the high rack tom position. Then I'll completely remove the ride cymbal stand on the right and use an extra snare stand. For this, I'll use my roommate's house snare because it's already detuned and I don't want to detune my beloved Brady. Let's start with the snares on. I put a couple moon gels on top to limit the reso. I'll improvise something you can copy, which will give Chris an excuse to transcribe this. Next, I'll turn the snares off, which requires Herculean effort since the snare throw-off is fucked. I don't hate this sound. It's of a feather with the low resonance tom sound of Cleon Edwards and JD Beck. Should we go verdict? In deciding whether this is a fad, I'm asking myself if it's large scale enough that it's not just a personal preference of one or two players, or a variation on something people were already doing, like the hidden stacks. But also, will people still be doing this on a large scale in 20 years, like double pedals? And the answer, in my humble opinion, is kind of fad. I don't see snoms catching on in a huge way. But hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I love it when players do innovative stuff to get different sounds out of the kit. And before we get to number 5, quick sidebar. You might be wondering why I'm not covering stuff like putting things on the snare drum. Well, I think this probably peaked in the 2000 odds. Also, there's an honorable mention, cup hi-hats. But I want to wait until I can get something from Meinl to demo that, and I didn't plan ahead very well for this video. But look for that in a future video. With that out of the way, let's talk about trend number 5. Weird drum trend number 5. Smack stacks. And this is easy because I already covered it in its own whole video. Link up above. But let me show you a couple clips. You guys want to hear the most 2023 drum beat? Here it is. It's got something for everybody. Offsets, right hand on the snare, implied metric modulation, but most of all, maybe the most unique symbol on my kit, my beloved Meinl Smack Stack. And I happen to think Meinl makes the best version of the so-called Smack Stack, as evidenced by people like one Mr. Jarasioglu here. I'm sure you've noticed drummers everywhere have adopted the humble stack. And just for clarity, clap stack is Istanbul's word, smack stack is Meinl's, and I'll use them interchangeably. It's so recognizable, it's definitely become a thing. Should we learn a basic clap stack beat? Let's learn one of my favorites. We can see Mike Mitchell using the stack like this in some spots. And Spanky inspired me, at least, with this viral video, which I'm pretty sure was on a pad instead of an acoustic smack stack. But we can get way simpler. To the drums, Batman! Start by placing the stack in around the same place as your rack tom. That way you can hit it with your right hand on backbeats. The idea of this beat is it's like a halftime rock beat, and instead of hitting the stack with the snare drum, which some people like to do, I think it sounds really cool to just hit the stack instead of the snare drum. You can kind of do an if I ever lose my faith New Jack kind of kick drum thing to open it up. And you can do some embellishments on the hats. That's as far as I'll go for now. So, are smack stacks a fad? I forgot if I ever took a position in the original video. For this one, I'm gonna go with a big fat, I don't know. Here's what I did say in that original video. It's a very specific sound, but it's also one that's pretty applicable. Like, how long have there been hand clap sounds in synthetic drum beats? 50 years? It's also gonna depend on whether people feel like carrying them to gigs. Because when you get jazz students carrying only hats and a clap stack on the subway, you know you've made it. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you've got an opinion on any of these, or something I left out, leave a polite comment down below. And as I said before, if you'd like a free transcription of all the little mini beats I came up with in this video, just click the link below the player and enter your email in on the next page so I know where to send it. Dudes, it's been real, always enjoy these. See you again real soon in another lesson of the week. You like that, Zach? You probably need a battery recharge, but fuck it. Let's soldier on.